Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast. And in the studio is somebody that is one of the most creative people I've ever met. And I met a lot of people, right? So the list goes on and on. And I'm not even going to say what I always say about people that should have been a guest on Detroit is Different. Has appeared in Detroit is Different before. But actually, I can't even necessarily say like a lot of folks. Yes, but definitely now it's going to be different. Detroit is different and been doing all types of stuff for all types of celebrities, television shows, movies, all through the arc of some of the most creative styles when it comes to hair that you ever would see. Kristina, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, back again, like you never left, as the rappers always say.
I know, right?
All right, so a lot has definitely manifested into so many blessings since last time you were here. You have taken the world with so many different styles of what you offer, from beauty and hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to say that it's so cool just watching the feed of like all the creativity that you always deliver.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we're going to start this old school style because I didn't do this last time. You were like the iteration back when I was doing Detroit is Different in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So the roots of you and your people.
Mm-hmm.
How many generations deep are you to the D?
3.
Okay.
3.
All right. From whereabouts?
My grandmother is from Meridian, Mississippi.
Meridian, Mississippi.
Yes.
Okay.
And then she married, of course, they all did the migration up for the motor companies.
Okay.
And she came up with and then stayed.
Okay. Now, Mississippi is usually the ties where you'll go to Chicago. It's a little bit further west, most folks.
Mm-hmm.
And you said motor companies was naturally the connection. What neighborhood did they move into when they got here?
East Side.
Okay.
East Side. I grew up on Herbert.
Okay.
Shoemaker.
Okay. All right. Right in the East Side. We love the East Side.
Side. Yeah.
All right. And a lot of black folks definitely start when they make their roots to Detroit right over there on the East Side. So those connections, and you said even growing up over there, they kept that as a family home even when you were younger?
Yes.
Okay.
She at that house, and it was 2 homes on Shoemaker that she owned with her late husband. So she left those to her 7 children.
Wow.
My mother was 1, so she inherited the house.
Okay.
2 family had flat. It was the beautiful house. I still love riding past the house, even though it's not the same anymore. But it was a 2 family flat. It had a grapevine. I never tasted grapes like that. They were like delicious, beautiful small grapes. The Italian family owned the home. They built it. They were not supposed to sell it to Negroes. That was on the deed. But and my grandmother didn't have a job and she had 7 kids, and she was able to finesse her way into getting a home as a single mother. Then when she got that home, she was a single mother. But they kept that in the family. The house had a gentleman's quarters in it, like a studio apartment, basically. There also, it had a wine cellar. It was a whole nother living quarters in the basement. It was the only house on the block that had a driveway, and the driveway could fit like 10 cars in it.
That is very East Side. As people know, it's like, why do people don't got driveways over here? That's one of the first things. Southwest of the East Side. Yes, yes. So one of the only houses with the driveway.
Only house on the block with a driveway.
Okay. And living quarters, as this house is kind of set up like that. A lot of times some of the soldiers coming back would, stay there, have some rent or whatever. People kind of have a roaming other revenue stream as they would have. So, okay. So
you don't find property like that anymore.
So let's get a little bit into your grandma's story as you talk about finessing, and then definitely condolences on the loss of the grandfather beforehand. But what was her arc as far as like if she had the kids, but still knew how to manage what was left with the money to expand and get property? So I'm guessing she had to have this business knowledge, and that probably imparted on others. Where was she picking all this stuff up from?
From what I know, 'cause, my grandmother died when I was 4 months old.
Mm.
So from the stories I got is that she just had the gift of gab, 1. She was beautiful, 2. She was also a hairstylist.
So that was her revenue stream.
Mhm.
Okay.
She had a hairstylist, and she was a very good cook. So
So she had 2 possible revenue streams.
mhm.
Okay. And then also, I'm guessing being in a neighborhood like that, if you got that gift of gab, you're gonna know a lot of the other people and have
And
those
she was
relationships.
she was light complected,
Hmm.
so she could probably pass if she wanted to.
Passing for white is another advantage,
Mhm.
especially I'm guessing in that era. Okay.
So,
Okay.
from what I know, that's
Okay.
all.
So these are the stories told.
Mhm.
Okay. And Lord knows, I can only imagine more of what that ethics of those stories and the traditions and ways of managing around getting multiple properties at the time. And it's not like today, as we, clearly see in a lot of ways, women still have many barriers in business. When we look at years ago, some of those barriers and knowing how to navigate that, even more of a testament to your grandmother navigating that as a widow. That's deep. That's very deep. So that leads to your parents and still being in that home. What was the scope of your mom? How was your mom? Did she get any of those traditions in business and entrepreneurship, or what was your mom?
My mom was she was the first one to go away to college,
Hmm.
and she went to Tennessee, and she became a dental hygienist.
Where did she go to school in Tennessee?
I want to say Meharry.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And dental hygienist, what spoke to that for her? Why? How did she end up choosing that? Was it just one of those things where it's like, hey, I want to get something that's going to be stable and keep it moving, and I know I can work?
Yeah, I think she was just trying to make money, and she was a dental assistant. I think she did that. Don't get me to. I want to say UD, but she was a dental assistant, and then she saw girls come in that had their stuff together, and they said that they were making it a nice amount of money. I think she said they were making $50 a day, and she was like, "Whoa," back then that was admirable.
Hey.
And so she talked her grandmother into letting her go away to college. She didn't know anybody, didn't have anything. She just went down there, and the universe opened it up for her when she got there.
So it still plays out where I'm guessing you grew up all the time getting the teeth cleaning and everything because, hey, that's what it's like growing up with somebody that's heavy into that field.
Yeah. So when I was coming up at this time, she worked at the malls, at the Golden Dentals inside the malls. She worked mostly at Northland, but so I grew up roaming the malls while my mom was at work on the weekends.
All right, so now let's talk about this relationship with Northland as it's uplifted. Being the east side of most people talk Eastland, but Northland, the West Side Mall, America's first mall. So, and so many cultural stories of Northland. Let's get the lens of Northland as a kid walking the halls of Northland. What was it like? What do you remember? What stood out?
I remember that it was a big deal that if you worked in the mall, you got a discount. Northland Mall had really changed over time. They went from having stores, like commercial stores, to having like black businesses. I remember having the art. That was probably the first time I was introduced to art, was going into Keith Washington's brother's store there. I remember buying my first Coogee sweater out there.
There you go. There you go.
For homecoming.
Where did you go to? Let's see, Coogee sweater. You may have went to. Where would you go to get a
don't.
Coogee
Did they have like
Northland.
Van Dyke or no? Or 42nd Street? I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
even remember the store. I just remember going out there, and then my mother, of course, wasn't paying that much. It was like $300 for a sweater. It was like
Maybe
crazy.
like Via Roma,
So they let
possibly Via Roma.
so they let us put it on layaway, and so I would catch the bus out there to pay on it weekly.
That's what it was. That's what it was. And I can only imagine. I can only imagine the feeling of busting out that Coogee when you finally had that.
Yep, I remember catching the bus because my cousin, well, she was my friend, but back then, and it was your cousin. And I would take one bus from the east side, the 6 Mile bus, all the way down to her house on 6 Mile. Then we would catch the bus together to Northland. Just determined.
There you go. All right. So the stores, you remember the African art, you remember the Coogee sweater, so many other stories.
Mrs. Fields, cookies. I remember meeting R. Kelly at the mall too, like
Ain't
the
that
stars
something?
and stuff.
I know people still looking like, see, there you go. There you go. There you go.
That was a memorable moment at Northland. He was out there when he first came out with public announcement.
Oh, back then.
Back then.
Yeah.
Honey Love.
Oh man, Honey Love R. Kelly. That's
Honey Love.
That's high top fade R. Kelly.
Okay.
It
was a minute.
All right. So so much other I guess, like I say, the Northland Mall, when it did have the larger department stores, even before it was Macy's, as when Buddha was telling his stories, working in Hudson's at the restaurant inside of Hudson's, and so much that was happening there. You just think of that moment in time, 90s, 80s, Northland Mall was one of those spaces that a lot of people would just be, even Eastland, like in that era. So being that connection, I'm sure your mom ended up meeting and just knowing a lot of people just being in the spaces. I worked at Northland at the H&R Block under the management of Vera for like that was like early 2000s, and just the people I met, still some of those people, it's like I still cross like, wasn't you but? And it's like, man, that was like 20 something years ago. But so I can only imagine your mom probably was just bumping into all types of people.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk your journey. School. Where did you go to school?
High school. I went to Osborne.
The Bourne. Shout out to the Bourne. What was it like?
Osborne. It was great. It's a neighborhood school. I went there for the first semester of 9th grade, and I wanted to go to Crockett actually.
Okay.
But they were full. So halfway through, so the second semester of 9th grade, they opened up a spot for me, and so I moved over to Crockett for the rest of 9th grade and all of 10th grade. And at that time, they were brand new, so they didn't have a building. So,
you were at Crockett.
The original, the
Stephanie Fazikis tells her article, her interview here, where they were in the trailers.
This is before the trailers.
Even pre-trailer.
Pre-trailer. It was the first graduating class.
Wow.
So the first semesters, I think we were in Spain.
Cobo Hall, she said something like Cobo Hall classes.
Cobo Hall was the second. So
iteration.
Okay, so the first, so they only had 9th grade first. Then each year they added 10th
a new
grade.
class.
Yes. So for 9th grade, we were small enough to be inside of Spain.
Wow.
And then the next year we were in the building on Cass and Adams.
Okay. All right.
That's where we were. And then the next year, that's when they put us at Cobo Hall, and that's where I kind of like drew the line. I was like, I'm not catching the bus to Cobo Hall every day. So I begged my mom to let me go back to Osborne.
Okay.
So I went back to Osborne, and then they threatened to like take my cosmetology, because at this point I was in cosmetology school, and they were saying that if I left the high school, because they didn't want everybody to leave high school, obviously, that they would also say I couldn't be in the cosmetology program.
So let me give some context to this so people understand it. Okay. So Crockett is a school that starts similar to a lot of schools. I want to say Crockett and DSA are added to the rolls of Detroit public high schools in the 90s. Crockett first, and the concept behind Crockett was to expand the vocational schools that are offerings for students. So vocational schools, meaning that Detroit has many vocational schools. So people would go to Go Lightly and learn things like how to be a mechanic, or like different things in CAD, computer aided drafting. And Bright Hop, I believe, had like programs in culinary arts, and Randolph had programs in also cosmetology. So you would learn.
I don't think Randolph had cosmetology.
Was Randolph food and Bright Hop was cosmetology? I know one of those schools had cosmetology.
Only
I thought it was
Crockett and Kettering.
Okay, and I do know Crockett was one of the schools with cosmetology. And the vocational school would be the school where people would go for like 3 hours out the day, either in the morning or the afternoon, and you would pick up this vocation, and usually you would end up with a certification if you went through the full program for 2 to 3 years, depending upon whatever discipline you pick. And Crockett expanded into a school. And you were one of the students that said, okay, I want to take up on this. So your interest was in cosmetology even from 8th grade to 9th grade then.
Yes.
So you made it in your mind that this is what I want to do even back then.
I had started braiding hair at home in the 8th grade. That's, I was braiding. I wanted those Dookie braids. I wanted Janet Jackson braids. I wanted all of that. And my mom would take me to the shop, but she wasn't paying for no braids. So, like, I can get a wrap or something. So, me and the friend, cousin, her name's Samia, on the west side, who I would catch the bus with, we started braiding our own hair. And then we would hang out, and everybody started asking us who did our hair and all this. And
all right, now this is pre-YouTube University. It's no tutorials like that. Where were you learning your styling and how to braid hair?
We just kind of picked up on it. We just figured it out, I think. 'Cause
was it the hair books or something like that, or like
they didn't really teach you in the hair books though? I really don't know how we knew, but I really don't remember that.
So the other steps in, let's see if you remember this. When did you know you were getting good at it versus you were still in the learning phase? And I guess we're always in learning in life, part of intelligence.
Well, people started asking us who did our hair, and I was like, yeah, I did. We did. And they were like, well, can't you do ours? I'm like, I don't know. Like, let me ask my mom. And because her mother was a hairstylist and did hair at home, she was comfortable, and with having people, strangers in the house. And so I started braiding at home. At first, I was braiding in my bedroom. And then that got to be too much. And so she let me fix up the basement. And I was braiding in the basement. And how I knew that I was good was I would come home, people be sitting on my porch. Wasn't no cell phones.
How did you charge people? How did you know what to charge? What was, like, at this young age, how did you manage this business?
I started thinking about charging by the hour, because that's all I knew was,
being an
get
employee
paid by the hour. So at that time, I thought that $10 an hour was a good price. So that's what I did. So,
how long would it?
So even if it took me 10 hours, it was $100.
How long was it usually taking you to do most of the styles?
I braided fast, but some things take a long time. Usually about 6 to 10 hours, about 5 or 6 hours, really. I would say. I remember doing, 2 girls came over, and they were from the west side, and they had a baby with them too. And I was braiding one hair, and then the other one started braiding hers, and I was like, okay, I'm tired. I have to go to bed. Y'all have to come back in the morning. And it was like, my daddy not gonna come back and get us. Can we spend the night? So they ended up spending the night in the basement, and I got up in the morning and finished their hair.
Wow.
It was like that.
Wow. So you had a client base already. You were active.
Yeah, I had a client base. So then that's when my mom was like, okay, if you really gonna do this, then you need to get into the program.
Especially if you got people spending the night over my house,
Right.
with children. Right. You got infants in the household out of nowhere. We need to get you the discipline of the school. Mm-hmm. So that's where Crockett looks. It's like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. I see it. I see the vision. Vision. So you enroll at Crockett. You're learning a little bit from going to Crockett, especially as the school is starting in foundations. And so many different stories. As I said, Stephanie's told the story, and I guess she starts later on because she tells the Cobo Hall story.
Right. So that was like the 11th grade for me. Mm-hmm. So, but I was like, I was already over going all the way down to Cass and Adams because, you know, they had a bus to come get you. So they would bus students from Osborne to Crockett. So I would just have to go up to Osborne and catch the bus, and then they'll bring me back to Osborne. I finish my classes and go there. But once I think I ended up in the PM program or something. I wasn't driving yet. And so when they moved that, then you had to go because that's what it was. I wasn't in the Votech program yet. So I was just
a student at the school.
Right. So I had to get there the best way I could. Mm-hmm. Or either
you missing school.
Right. I'm trying to figure out how it was. But it was something to where I had to catch the bus from there instead of I couldn't catch the
Votech bus.
Right, the Votech bus, and that became taxing.
Mm-hmm. And Cass and Adams is basically, so people get the concept that are familiar with Detroit, that's like in the footprint of the Wayne State campus, and I'm guessing...
I guess so, but it's more... It was like an abandoned building. It wasn't right. And so
it was but I'm saying
it's over there, right kind of behind the Fox Theater.
Yeah. You're right. More so like what I forget they call those new streets and everything like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're in this space where it's like, okay, I'm stretching all these buses. It's not like a direct shot. Let me go back to Osborne. My friends are there already. Mm-hmm. I started there, so I still kind of know some people, but you still want to walk away with the cosmetology license.
Right.
So were you able to finish up by just taking the vocational school at Crockett?
Yes, only because they were still busing kids from everywhere else. So you can't tell me I can't get on the bus. Like, they was just trying to bully me.
Yeah.
But anyway, they ended up letting me still take the program.
Okay.
And so... that's what I did. I would go up there in the mornings and take the bus and, back on the Votech bus. But I didn't want to catch the bus from Cobo Hall at the end of the day, because they promised us the trailers from the beginning.
And it took a while.
It took a but it wasn't until the senior year until they got it.
Yeah, as I'm sure you understand as an entrepreneur, we make plans, and oftentimes things shift. You got to get creative, and
I just thought going to school at Cobo Hall to me just saying ghetto.
Yeah,
like Cobo Hall. I'm like, what?
And when things change, as you know, as an entrepreneur, when things change, sometimes it changes the people that's rolling with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in this iteration, you finish Crockett, or Osborne, I would say, graduate from there. With your license in cosmetology, where you go?
I actually went to Wayne State because I was thinking that this was just going to be a way for me to make some money while I was in school to be an anesthesiologist. Mm-hmm. But my clientele grew, and I finished my prereqs, and I was like, I really don't want to go to school so much to be a doctor. I was just really interested in anesthesiology.
Why did you have an interest in that?
I just thought it was so like intriguing how you can kind of basically kind of like kill somebody a little bit and then bring them back to life. Like it was just amazing to me, the concept of them being able to like numb you that much and then bring you back. I was just intrigued with that, with how it works.
In this relationship, I'm clear because your mom's working in a dental office. You're very familiar with it, especially back then. So anesthesia, as I've had dental work done with anesthesia, it's completely different because now, I had anesthesia on my leg back then in the 90s. So back then it was like, oh yeah, you can just get knocked out. Now you're signing a lot of forms. It's a lot more due diligence with everything going on with anesthesia. So I can only imagine what anesthesia was like in the 80s. But clearly,
I'm just curious, just so curious,
it's
how they do
interesting.
that.
Yep. So it's the science of getting knocked out, basically, so work can get done. And I'm a firm believer in if you need some serious dental work done, go for the anesthesia.
Yeah.
But you got to have good, your blood pressure needs to be right. Heart rate definitely needs to be right because people do die in anesthesia, and it's not a sort of kind of happen thing. It happens a lot more often than we think. So you're thinking that, and your client base is just growing, especially, since you had this client base really growing over years now. So really from 8th grade through a couple years in college, I'm guessing you may have some clients that have been with you. Even you're 19, you may have some people that you've been doing their hair for 5-6 years or something.
Yep.
Even at 19.
Yes.
Probably older than you too.
One of my clients I still have from when I was doing hair in the basement. And she had 3 sisters, so they were unique because I would go over there to do them because it was so many of them.
Wow. And I'm sure every step of the way, you ain't used to cost this much. I'm just messing with you. But clients always sometimes like to say that. But with that, they've been rolling with you for forever then.
Forever, since the beginning.
Okay.
Might have been with me since the beginning. Now her kids are grown. Yeah.
So this arc of, let's just get there. What connected you? It starts with this, okay, I just want to do my own hair. How did you grow more of a passion for this? Is something that just seemed like it's definitely not a hobby, but something that you never really saw as a career. When does it shift to be like, nah, this is really what I want to do as a career?
When you start making money.
Okay.
I was just so happen to be good at it, and I started making money. Like for the second year of college, I paid my own way. And I got all my prereqs out of the way, and it was like, okay, now you got to really pick a major. And I didn't want to be a doctor first. So there's like, well, be a nurse anesthetist. I'm like, I really don't want to be a nurse either, And so I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I took a break. And I think I had one job in my life. I worked at Target for my senior year in high school.
Which one?
DeQuinder.
So the DeQuinder Target, that's the one that's in that's the one that's in the Universal Mall, right? The Dollar Show, back when the Dollar Show was there.
Dollar Show. I actually went there last night.
So for people that don't know, it's the Dollar movie is something that you pay $1, you go to the movie. The movie's a little bit older than what's in theaters now. Now, if you buy a snack at the Dollar Show, it's going to cost you like $25 for a piece of gum. But you got in the movie for $1. Okay, so
it's $10 now.
Okay, the $10 show. The $10 show. There you go. And Universal Mall Target. One job. And I'm guessing the type of money you were making doing hair, you may have worked for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So how long did you actually work that job?
Like a year and a half.
Oh, you actually were there even longer. Okay. All right. Okay. And then God went another person that worked at Target. And then you just said, all right, I'm not dealing with this. And I'm surprised you didn't pick the one over on Van Dyke. But you worked there for a second. And then that's when you make the decision full time. This is what I want to do.
I think so. Yeah. I was in a professional. So in high school, my instructor, she was in a professional organization called the Wolverine State Cosmetology Association. And so she showed me, she introduced me to, more like the corporate side of it, I would say. And then they had like conferences once a year, and you can see how people made it a career. You can see in real time how they made it a career and how she even pivoted to teaching. So then I had that, like, okay. So I eventually went back to get my instructor's license from Crockett as well. Um, but what did I do? I also took years later, I went back and got my associates from Oakland Community, because they would take your
other credits, and you already had all these credits.
I had a bunch of credits, and they take your license, and that's half the credits. Your cosmetology license.
You may have got like a double associate's then.
So I really only needed to take maybe 3 classes.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, you're like, okay, now you've learned other revenue streams in this, so you feel a little bit more grounded that, as they always say, all the money you make ain't necessarily money on your feet.
Yeah. Well, I started working in a salon. My mom, she would go to a lady for electrolysis. She was an esthetician, and she had a salon in East Point. And so I started working at her salon in 97.
Wow.
It was small. It was just me and her in there. But it was nice. And because of where I was positioned, it was in East Point, like 9 and Gratiot. I would get all the clients from Mount Clemens and Roseville and all those areas that was kind of shy against going across 8 Mile. But they would come to 9 and Gratiot.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of clients from that way, and then I still had the East Side clients, and then also had that area by the Quinder, because for whatever reason my coworkers at Target wouldn't come to me while I was working there, but after I quit, they all came to me.
They was like, "Hey, she must be doing something good. She quit. This is a good job, and she quit. So she must be doing something good. Let's go on and go in here." All right, so now you got some pockets and you got a little bit of a footprint. You start in that shop, booth rent and all of that. And then this relationship with your mom. How long did you stay at the shop? What did you learn just in that experience of being the beautician at the shop?
I learned a lot from her. She was Japanese and Ukrainian. And she had a cosmetology license, a manicurist license, an esthetician license, and an electrolysis license. And she would go off each client and do all of those services on one person. And she had a programming system. So I learned how to book clients and keep up with things, color formulas, and you can keep up with how much money you're making, and you can keep up with all their information, in this software. And so I carried that even till now. So she taught me a lot of the business side and how to handle that, because I didn't learn that in school, or in another salon I wouldn't have learned it either. And she made me even though I finished the program, you have to go and take the test. And the first time I took the test, the mannequin stand broke, so I couldn't complete it.
Wait, time out. So the mannequin that you're doing the hair on in your test, and this is like, I'm guessing it's who's ever delivering it, it's still like state licensed or something. So it almost be like if I'm getting my driver's license test, and then I pull out in the car that they give me to do the test, and then the car shut off.
Something like that.
Wow.
Somehow
Ain't that
I
something?
had to go back. And you know how you kind of drag your feet to go back, because it's a lot to even, go. You have to go to Lansing to take it at the time. I think, or it was a city out by there, Brighton. I think Brighton. You have to go to Brighton to take the test. You have to have someone, a live model also, in theory and all that. But since I had passed the theory the first time, I just had to go back and do the practical over because of the mannequin. So, but now when taking the test, they don't even make you take practical, which is crazy. So I was just kind of dragging my feet on it because also in a salon that's not licensed, which a lot of salons aren't, um, they don't care about all of that.
Yeah, they're not even necessary. It's like a bartender. It's like, what bartender got a license? Not many. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying? It's like you
Right.
gotta, especially you got a clientele base. People are coming in,
Right.
you making money, you doing your thing.
Right.
Let's just go. But you're still checking all the boxes as you're
Mhm.
seeing the licenses pay off for learning from this shop. So you pass the test now. And in this arc, let's get, I guess, deeper into the creativity because you start styling and the way you approach things, you offer, you've even delivered, first off, being in hair shows. So we may want to start there. Your hair show journey, where the creativity that you offer with hairstyling. What got you into that?
So in high school, my instructor, again, part of the Wolverine State Hospitality, her name was Gail Livingston Scott. They had a annual gala, and at the gala, they had a competition. They had a student competition, a fantasy hair competition. They had student and they had professional. And she encouraged me to get into the student competition, and that's what introduced me to making unconventional things out of hair. That's when you make all the wild and crazy hairstyles. And the first thing I made was a Betty Boop. Um, and she introduced me to a stylist that worked at Charm Center on the Lodge and 6 Mile, I believe, named Ida. And she showed me how to mold and make
And
things,
sculpt the hair
sculpt
and
things,
everything.
and yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I won, I think, third place the my first time. So I was got kind of bit by the bug, if you will.
And this is back in high school, even.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, you stay. Where you express this even more after that? Do you just keep in that competition? When do you start connecting yourself independently with competitions like this?
So we went from that to, I believe I did my first hair wars in 2006.
Oh, shout out Hump the Grinder.
Shout out, huh?
Love Hump. Okay. All right. So you did Hair Wars in 06. All right. What was that experience like?
It was great. It was crazy. But I think that I needed that creative outlet because when you're in the salon, you just have to do what they ask you to do. But when you do outside of the salon, you can do whatever you want, and the model just gotta.
Yeah,
They
they're
just
modeling
gotta,
for you.
they gotta rock with
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So you
So
don't
it's
have
like,
to
I'm gonna put a
worry.
roller coaster on your head. Like, for
Mhm.
real? Let's do it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the Hair Wars experience, and you even take on something deeper where you provided a program at the Wright Museum where you travel through the arcs of the black hair journey over time.
Mhm.
Let's talk about you producing your own show around here. And that's around the time where we kind of, well, not, yeah, no, I'm going to tell that story too. But let's talk about that. How do you get to that point in creativity?
So I have been doing the hair wars for years, and I believe like 2013, I think was my last one. We had so many people come out, but it just seemed like it was kind of like a pissing contest or whatever. It was like, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. And I was just like, I want to do something that's a little more um that has some substance that they can come and learn something about hair as well. They can be enlightened, they can be empowered, they can be entertained as well. And it's something that we can work on. Like I can get a group of hairstylists to work together on a project. So it's just not like Kristina turn on stage, Teddy turn on stage, whoever. It's just they turn, and then sometimes people would leave after they person got off stage. So I was like, but if we work together and all our work is on stage together and we telling a story and the whole idea I was it came from me looking at a hairstyle, and then I talked to someone. They was like, yeah, they wear their hair like that, showing me that the hairstyles had meaning. back in tribal days. And so I researched that and I was just kind of blown away. And so that was the basis for the for the show. It was called My Hair, My Story, My Glory. We did in 2015 with my choreographer. She was my choreographer for all the shows. So we produced it together. And it had music, poetry, and dance. And it just told the story because looking at hairstyles from then, it told your marital status, your social status, what region you were from. You can even tell your age. You can tell if you were widowed, if you were a warrior, if you were, all of that came from your hair. And I was just intrigued from that and then still wondering the remnants of that. Like, can you still tell that now?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of can. If I go anywhere with a legit Detroit hairstyle, they gonna know I'm from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you can kind of tell that, little kids wear barrettes in their hair and men wear, their hair a certain way. And it's some remnants from that. So I was just showing that in real time how, mohawks, how that started or, how we started wearing all the adornments in our hair. They may have wear bottle caps, but now we wearing barrettes.
Yeah. Okay. I loved that explanation, but just knowing that you were putting that intentionality, and this is kind of when we crossed paths as you were doing a birthday celebration and we were doing an event about other Detroit histories where you're like, yo, can we do some birthday stuff there? I was like, yes, you can. And you brought out your whole posse on top of like a lot of my whole team was there. It was just a cool classic Detroit is Different event. And that's where we connect. And so much since then, just all your creativity I've witnessed to soon after you're like, hey, I'm getting more looks from a lot of people kind of in the film and TV and movies where you make the leap and go to Los Angeles in here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about that. And then also making that same connection with Hair Wars. A lot of the hair in the Black Mafia Families episode of Hair Wars with Hump the Grinder, that's your hair. Meaning you're the stylist behind a lot of those styles.
Yeah.
What's this connection to doing, as people always talk about doing celebrity hair, but doing more than just celebrity hair, but this is hair for production, television, movies. How do you get into that space?
I don't want to say I was pushed into it, but people just kind of reached out and recommended me. It's not like I look for it. It isn't even anything that you can apply for. It's literally LA. The film industry period is totally a who you know industry. So for the BMF in particular, just a barber from here, Tiff, the barber that actually moved down to Atlanta, and that's where they were filming. But they had to come and do some scenes in Detroit, and she recommended me for that. And because they were doing a Hair War segment, and everybody know that I did a lot of Hair Wars.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of opportunities from being in Hair Wars. Let me say that Hump has really opened some doors for a lot of stylists.
Okay. And in this space, like I say, moving to LA, what was the decision to make the move to LA, and how has it been?
Again, I just kind of jumped out there a little bit, so I really didn't know what to expect. It is completely different from working in a salon and navigating that, and that's what I have been doing for the past over 25 years, 27 or more.
I know, so, and you include the basement. It's like, been doing that my whole life.
Whole life.
Doing that my whole life. The LeBron James of hair.
Okay. For real.
Yes.
Doing it forever.
Yeah.
So I didn't give it enough credit of the change. I went so when I was considering it, I was like, because I had a salon in Grosse Pointe. So I was like, do I just renovate the salon again or do I move? What do I do? And then I prayed about it. Well, before I left, let me say, so I had made friends with a florist that was my neighbor. She was a couple doors down in Grosse Pointe. And she's like, well, before you leave, let's think about maybe staying here and getting a building together. I was like, okay. So it was a building available on Alter in Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful 2-story, 3-story building, I want to say, at least 2, and it had a big basement. And it had a parking lot and it had a church behind it, and then it had land behind that. And she was like, she can grow flowers, we can do weddings, because I had a big clientele for weddings and even, people coming to me for events.
Mm-hmm.
And you can teach classes. I'm like, how does she even know I wanted to teach? And so I was really, really looking into
The space.
going to this space. She's like, we can retire off of it. So I was like, okay, God, maybe I shouldn't go to LA. Maybe this is what I should do. And I was on the fence and I was going back and forth, and I had talked to my homegirl, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So we prayed about it that night. And at 7 in the morning, the florist called me. Now we had inspectors come. We had investors ready to help us out. It was like $1.7 million. And that morning I woke up and she called me at like 7 in the morning and said that everything had flooded. I know you remember that.
Yeah.
When we had that little flood here. And so my place, her place, and the new place all flooded. And they had just put new boilers in the new place.
In the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that
really made the
why
decision
I left. Exactly.
So
that was the push.
LA, navigating that space. What was how do you get your footing in LA? And it's a constituency of some Detroiters out of LA, and I know you've definitely connected with some of the people but how do you get your footing out there, and what gets going? What are those first connections you do out there?
What did I do out there? I have been working on just like commercials, mostly commercials, and doing clients for like the events out there, for like award shows, red carpets. I really didn't want to go into a salon again because it was just too hard to detach from the clientele.
Yeah, because the culture is different, and then also let me say this too, and I'm just from visiting, and a lot of what people say, it's you have LA culture, then you have Hollywood culture. So Hollywood culture around LA culture is more a lot of people that come to LA, and then it's still a culture of people that are from LA and have been in LA for forever. That is something different, but then a lot of the people that are coming and moving and traveling, like agents, managers, publicists, making connections to people through people like that. As people say, "Oh, you act in Hollywood." The phrase is, "I'm gonna have my people talk to your people." That's a reality. Hence, it ain't Hollywood. It's a reality. Whereas that's not here. You know what I'm saying? Like here, it's like, "Yo, I'm gonna come in tomorrow. You good?"
Right.
So that still happens in the LA of the people that are from LA, but not within that culture of Hollywood, and navigating both. It's just different. And then also I got to really acknowledge the fact of all your years in the game already of knowing what a salon is and working a booth and managing that. And technically you're not making a leap to go to LA to do the same thing you were doing in Detroit.
Exactly.
So I want to uplift that as well. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I could have just stayed in the D if that's what I was going to do. You know what I'm saying? So
I already had a clientele.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's like a lot of people didn't understand that. Like walking away from your money, your guaranteed, and it was just like, but I can't do this forever. Like this. So that's
get on your feet to make every dollar you get.
Exactly. And then at least if you're working on set, you only have to So as soon as I left, I had to come back and do BMF. And so and I was kind of in charge of putting the team together for that of Detroit Stylists. So it's like you have to hurry up and get everybody ready to go on screen, and then you kind of sitting around the rest of the time. So it sounds good from someone like, okay, I can still make money and not be hard on anybody. But because I've been in a fast-paced environment for so long, it be killing me just sitting there. So that is a big transition. So now I'm thinking of pivoting to something else.
Okay.
I don't like it.
So, but let's also just talk about some of the other relationships that you've gathered while being out there, and then also you're here. And first off, I want to definitely give prayers out to everyone in LA that has experienced what's happened with the fires that have impacted folks, and especially the Black community out there, Altadena in the Palisades. Just it's gonna take beyond love of what it is for what's impacted. So first, let's talk. Is your place safe? Are your people straight? Where do you stand as far as from the fires in LA?
I think the Studio City fires got about 2 miles from where I live. So that's the closest it got to me. That's close, but not.
That's very close.
It's close, but it's not, it didn't directly,
like some of the
impact.
people you're
Yes,
familiar with.
nothing was on fire. But it's just, I was coming from, it happened right when I was coming home from Africa.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I don't want to fly into an aggressive fire. Even if my place wasn't on fire, it's the air quality
And that's
and the evacuations and the traffic, and I'm like, everything gonna be shut down anyway. Let me just
go back home.
go home. So I pivoted back here,
and this has probably been the first time coming back home without like a movie set or something like that, because you've been here for a second now. When's the last time you spent this much time at home without like work related things? Though I'm pretty sure I know if you let clients know you working, people is coming. But when's the last time you intentionally spent this much time at home?
Not this much time. But I do come home often. The first year I didn't, but after that my clients applied pressure, and so
hilarious. But like I say, coming back to work is different than a lens of coming back to be back.
So
and I'll raise that question to say, like, have you noticed just in this short time some of the differences in the city? Not necessarily the changes of your people, but just more so the culture
of Detroit. Oh, it's changed a lot, especially downtown. But yeah, like I said, I've been coming home like every 2 months. I come home for like a week or a weekend. So I've seen it change in real time, especially while we're talking film. The film culture here is like crazy right now. But I think that's what we're moving more towards, is everyone doing independent things instead of relying on Hollywood.
So you've worked on some of the independent projects here, I'm guessing, then?
Not here, not since I've been gone. But before I left, I worked on some
projects. And so not here. Where are you working on some of the independent stuff? And then what are some of the other projects that we may know that you've worked on?
Like I said, I've been doing a lot more so like commercial, because Hollywood has it took a hit from COVID, and then we had a writer's strike.
Yeah.
And then after COVID was technically over, they cut the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot of the Black shows got canceled. And so now the fire is a whole nother situation. So I don't know
what's happening there.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I may need to pivot again.
So I guess let me ask this: as you're uplifting that, what have been some of the things, I guess, less that we know? What have you liked working on most? You talked about BMF. What have you liked working on most since you've made this transition at this point in time?
I like working on like for BMF I got to create like um most of the things there are, they're every day. You're working with people who are portraying the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
So I like when I get to express my creativity like I did in BMF, but I've also moving into the complete like fine art space and making.
Explain what that is.
So I make art, contemporary fine art with hair. So on canvas and large scale sculpture, and I've also been doing a lot of wearable art pieces with hair.
It, so, where could we find something like this so that people can kind of see it or feel it? Where do they get this?
Um, so I on online you can see it on my page, on my website. I also have some pieces on display. I did a whole art show in 2020 before I left. But I have some pieces on display right now in LA, and I'm working on getting my art out there. That was another reason why I went to LA, is to uh, expose my art to a broader, even global platform.
You did a showing at the DIA, which we got some pictures and some B-roll and everything. What was that like? How did you make that connection? And when did you start seeing that relationship with fine art in hair?
I believe that was probably that sparked it, because they asked me to do a live demonstration. But that at that time, I was still only making art on the head.
Mm.
And then I believe that following year, my neighbor in Grosse Pointe, he got the Junior League of Detroit show house. Are you familiar with them?
Mm.
So every year they pick a house, and it's usually in
Grosse Pointe.
Grosse Pointe. But for this year, it was It was for 2017, I believe. It was the Fisher Mansion,
Mm.
and Hill Harper had just bought it, but I didn't realize that he had bought it at this time. But so they were to every designer, it's like a lottery, and you get to win a room to decorate, and it's a quiet competition. But everyone comes out and they look and they find a designer, you know, that they like, that can design their home
Mm.
or business or whatever.
Mm.
And so I asked them if I could put a hairpiece in there. So I had started putting all my pieces in the window in my salon in Grosse Pointe, because I was tired of having them in storage. And so he was like, "Yeah, you can make a piece." And then I realized that the owner of the house was a man, and there was no lady in the house, just him and his son. And so I was like, I can't just put a random, sculpture ponytail on a mannequin on this man's house. I had to do something. And also, it's a very diverse clientele that comes and views the home. So, in that process, was the first time that I made a piece off of the head, and it was a saxophone.
Hmm.
And that's what sparked it. So it was like a bomb went off in my head. Well, if you can do this, you can do anything with it. And I also wanted something, because I enjoyed having my work at the DIA, but I wanted something that can live there when I'm not there.
That's deep.
Hmm.
All right. So, with that and so much of this creativity, and thank you so much for sharing so much in this story. And I know you said, like, okay, you're making a determination on what your next pivot will be. Whatever it is, I know it's going to be very creative. What's exciting you now about hair and your creativity and your offering? What excites you? What are you waking up saying, like, okay, I'm drawn to this, and this is kind of where I'm putting more of my focus and energy?
I'm putting more of my focus and energy on art, on hair art. Um, I when I went to when I first got to LA, I went to a Black Doll show, and I loved it. So this year, I made some pieces, and I was challenging myself to make some pieces that were that fit the theme, but also were true to my aesthetic. And so I made some pieces and add some dials. And actually, the dial maker is from Detroit as well. The Healthy Root dials. You can buy them at Target. And I added more 3D pieces to the canvases, and they've been a hit. So I'm just challenging myself to make more art and to tell the story also behind it. I'm getting a lot of feedback from telling stories. So getting back into, I want to do another reboot of My Hair, My Story, My Glory, and finish telling that story. It was supposed to be a 10 series
program.
And we only got 2 out.
Okay.
I did them
so 8 more.
But I want to combine it into one.
Okay.
And I need to get that out. I've been sitting on that.
The August Wilson of hair. I like it. The creativity's flowing. Okay.
Yeah. We have so many stories, and our culture is so wrapped around hair. I feel like even in me, doing the waves and the ponytails and all of that is looked upon as unprofessional or whatever. But if you put it on a canvas, it can be celebrated differently. It can be appreciated on its own without having the stigma of where's she going and how she gonna sleep and da da da. You can just appreciate the artistry of the hair sculpting alone.
I like it. And Detroit is different. Definitely would love to capture some of that as we would get access to, because I definitely don't see you doing something that creative and not coming back to the crib with it.
Yeah,
so definitely let's stay in flow with that.
Yes.
So we get to a close. Classic Detroit is different questions here, because I don't think I hit you with these before, because like I say, Detroit is different has evolved as well. Hey. So very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
I want to say, I know it was a gray Escort.
Okay.
Ford Escort.
Okay.
So my mother it was her car, and she planned ahead. So by the time I was a senior in high school, the car was paid off. Okay. Single mom. So it had to be 4 years old in 96.
Okay.
So probably in 92.
Where did you go when you first got it?
To school.
So your first drive was to the school.
Well, she wouldn't let me drive, so I had to. Even though she planned on me having it, she was very nervous of me driving, so she didn't want me to drive.
So it was like to school and back.
I had to enroll myself into driver's training, and they had dropped it at Osborne at that time, so I had to bus to King High School for driver's training after school. And I did that. I'm like, okay. And then she's like, well, you still can't drive, So I had to go get my permit and all of that. And then you had to drive.
You were begrudgingly saying this in the mind of a teenager. It's like, oh, I had to get a license to get my car. And it's
I mean, I had to do it on my own. It wasn't like my mom was like, okay, I signed you up, or come over here, or I paid for it. No,
certainly.
I had to figure it out. It wasn't no picking me up and dropping me off and none of that.
Certainly. that is how you get some keys. Exactly. It's like, this is what it is, but this is how you go. So that means she didn't even go, which that was tough. Rest in peace to my mom too. My mom did not want to do those hours. So it was my Aunt Shirley, rest in peace, my Aunt Shirley, that took me on all the training hours. So like to drive, I don't know if you all remember, to get a license, you have to sit and drive and learn. So you have to do, I think they say you have to do like 100 hours. Anybody really do no 100 hours, but you still have to sit in the car with somebody to drive that car. My mom was not feeling that.
You gotta practice.
My mom was not feeling that because, and I don't blame her. I was probably doing all types of stuff you ain't supposed to be doing because you gotta learn. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, my mom took me to Belle Isle. That's how I learned how to drive, like control a car.
Yep.
Going around those curves.
And that's and it's cool when no other cars are around, but then when you get on the line, just like, oh, what you doing? What are you doing?
Oh yeah. Freeway
like, stay in the middle of the lane. Yes, but yeah. So that was the first ride.
So it wasn't until um we were taking lessons for skating together, roller skating.
Okay.
And at the time, the style was to wear big face watches. And she had a big face watch on and fell and ended up breaking her wrist. Yeah, it broke her wrist. So then she couldn't drive.
And then it needed to drive. You became the chauffeur.
See, God be working.
Yeah.
Mysterious ways, because I probably still would not be driving if she didn't have
hilarious. It drove too much at that point. All right, so that's the first ride. Mm-hmm. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
At the end of the fireworks. Now or then?
It's up to you. You the DJ.
Oh, that's a hard one. The first thing pops to my mind is fireworks, but that's not a Detroit song. It gotta be some type of JIT mix, like Detroit mix.
Okay, you gotta sing a song. The JIT Ghetto Tech song.
Oh man, I used to love going to the fireworks too. I'll start with one of them songs like Shake What Your Mama Gave Ya.
Okay, all right. Ghetto Tech for the first song.
Tech.
And then what else for the second song?
We gotta go with the hypest song right now is They Not Like Us.
Okay, there you go. All right, the LA and Detroit is where you at. Last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Woodward. I guess the most iconic person is Coming That Young to me.
He's the most named one. There we go. You got a why for Coleman? Just the iconicness?
The unapologeticness. Like, especially now, like we see, it's probably going to be crazy, but he like the Black Trump.
Hilarious.
But you know how they say Obama had to be perfect. He was himself. And I admire that the most.
I love it. With that being said, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And like I say, I am definitely paying attention to the creativity because, Kristina, you are a crafter.
Thank you.
Big time. So with that, Detroit is different. Peace.
Detroit is different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.